Julie here with Just Plain Fun, and today I'm going to show you how to make this block. I'm calling it the Stratton square block. If there is another name for it, if you've seen it before, I would love to know. I'll give credit to where credit's due, but I could not find it in the program that I use to write up my blocks. But I'm going to show you how to make it double-sided, like I've been doing all along, quilt as you piece, and let's get started. Okay, in order to do this block, you got the instructions here. It's called the Stratton square block, and there's a number of pieces that you're going to need. You got all sorts of things here. This block here, it identifies the patches, and this one is the order of assembly. It's got numbers. And so let's get started with it. First thing we're going to do is the centerpiece here. And I have all my pieces cut and ready to go, but this time I cut everything oversized. And there's a reason why I did that, because in this particular block you can trim it down after each addition. In fact, this is definitely oversized. I'll be cutting it down after I quilt it. And with these pieces, I am going to quilt them. Probably 1 or 2 lines of stitching. These are definitely all oversized, so probably 1 or 2 lines. That's it. So let's get started on this one. First thing you do, if you haven't been watching me, I'm only going to do the first 2 or 3 pieces, and then the rest of them will be fast forwarded. But this is to show you the basic technique of the quilt as you piece method. What you do first is you glue these 2 pieces of fabric to the batting. And you do this. And you lay it down. Turn it over. And you want to heat set it. And I promise you this glue will wash out. It is a washable glue stick. And I also use a liquid Elmer's school glue, which is washable also. It does wash out when you wash the quilt for the first time. And let me get the glue on this one. And I hold on to the fabric with my other hand just so it won't go anywhere, because this is what happens when you don't hold on to it. That is glued down. Heat set that. And I'm going to go ahead and put in my quilting lines. And I'm going to use this to mark them. And I'm going to be using an air-soluble pen to mark my quilting lines. And I'm going to make them an inch apart. In fact, because this square is actually going to be this small, yeah, that'll still work. I'm going to eyeball it and center it as carefully as I can, because I am going to be cutting it down to the size of that square I just showed you. And I got myself a set of clear ones so that I could actually see through them. And I will provide an affiliate link to Amazon of where I got those. I just got them in this past week. And then once I cut it down to the size I want it to be, I'm going to be putting a round of stay stitching around the perimeter, 1/8 of an inch in from the edge. And the stitch length that I use on my machine is 3.0 because I'm going through layers. In this case, it's 2 layers of fabric and 1 layer of batting. And the batting that I use is 100% cotton. This batting happens to be made in Maine, and the brand name is Angel Crafts. And I also use batting that is on a roll, the Katahdin jelly rolls. And those come in 2.5 inch and 2 1/4 inch wide rolls, and I use both sizes along with the Angel Crafts batting. They're all made in the same factory. All right, so I'm going to go ahead, go to the machine and do my quilting on this, and I'll show you the next step. All right, so I have it stitched, well, at least quilted. Now I'm going to go ahead and trim this up. I'm going to use this, and I think I want to be able to see my stitching. Yeah, I'm going to actually get you a little closer too to see what I'm doing. Just a little bit. All right, and I'm going to try to center it as carefully as I can. I mean, I don't have to be super accurate, just close enough, because I know my stitching is not accurate. I think that's close enough. Grab this. Turn my cutting mat. And I'm going to check that again, make sure I got that straight, and you could use a little bit more help. All right, so that is ready for the next step. And let's get you back. All right, so the next step is I'm going to start adding the next pieces. Done with this one for the day. Okay, the next pieces are the ones that go here and here. All right, this one, I believe, yes, this is the way I want it to be. Okay, what I do with this is, because they're going on opposite sides, it doesn't really matter at this point which side I put them on. You're going to put some dots in the seam allowance, tiny dots, and I promise these will wash out. And you center the fabric. Because it's longer than it needs to be, go ahead and center the fabric. Make sure it's perfectly lined up. And I always use glue on my, I always use glue when I'm doing this technique, because I put the fabric on both sides. And I don't want any shifting in the machine, and I don't have to use a walking foot for this. Okay, flip it over and get the other side down. And because this little piece here is wide enough, I'm going to go ahead and do both sides. And I don't have any fear of the fabric interfering and getting caught up. It'll just save time on the video as well as in making the block. So I'm going to go ahead and center it. And again, I'm going to press it. So part of the reason to make it oversized is so that you can trim it down to the size it's supposed to be when it comes time to trim it. And the instructions will tell you how wide to cut them down to. And then what happens also is, when I go to the sewing machine to do the 1/4 inch seam allowance, I'm also going to do a zigzag stitch here to sew this to this piece. That way it stays in the quilt and doesn't bunch up when it gets washed. So I go ahead and glue the other side on. And I like to starch my fabrics before I cut them into their little pieces. And I use Acorns. I can't remember the exact name of it. I'll go get the spray bottle in my next I'll show it to you then after I get these stitched on. Okay, then the other side. And this fabric, it's hard to tell which side is which. I know it's printed on, but it's really hard to tell. Okay, well, whatever. I think it'll be fine in the grand scheme of things. And you hold it 6 to 10 seconds, depending on how much glue you added. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the 1/4 inch seams here and the zigzag stitches here. Be right back. Oh, I should cap that. All stitched, ready for the next step. And the next step is to go ahead and flip this and to tug a little bit to release any glue that might be outside the seam allowance. Do that with both sides. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take your glue stick and you're going to glue the fabric down to the batting. And then I'm going to take it back to the sewing machine at this time, and I'm going to do my quilting stitches before I move on to the next step. It's not absolutely necessary, but I'm going to do it in this case. Flip it over and do the same thing on the other side. Tug it a little bit. I was actually quite careful, so there really wasn't any glue outside of the seam allowance. Do that again. Yeah, we're good. So there's a lot of blocks that can be done in this manner, especially blocks that can be worked from the inside out and you just keep adding to it and adding to it, especially those where you don't really need specific sizes. Those are a little bit harder to work with, but still doable. And I'm not going to bother trimming this down just yet. I'm going to go ahead and take it to the machine and do my quilting stitches. Now it's time to do the trimming. So I pull this up and let me get a ruler that I want to use for this one. Okay, so I'm going to use this ruler, and basically I know that the center square is accurate, so I'm just going to go ahead and line it on that center square and not worry about the rest of it. As long as it's straight, that's what matters. And I'm going to use my weight here to help me out, hold it in place so that I don't have to press down so hard, and get that straight here. There we go. Turn this around and trim the other side. So the neat thing about this particular method is, well, for one thing, your block is the same on both sides, just using different fabrics. And so there is no front and back. It is what it is. And it's, you know, it's just another way of making quilts. I'm not trying to, you know, get anyone to really change the way they make cute quilts, but it's just another. And you can call it a quilt as you go quilt. I'm calling it quilt as you piece because you quilt, you know, you can quilt your little pieces as you add them on. And when you're done with the quilt block, it's ready to go. All right, so the next one I do is these here. And again, the pieces are oversized. Now let me get you a little oriented here so that you can see where I'm at. Right now I am in the process of making this center, and that is not a good pointer. Let's try a pencil. So I'm making this little block here, this part here. And once I get these two pieces on, these two here, I will trim it down to the size that it needs to be. And then we'll continue on with the triangles. So I'm going to fast forward through this part because you just saw it. I want to thank you for watching, and as you can see, I am finished with the block, and I hope you enjoyed the sewing machine part of this. I wasn't sure if it was going to work out, and I'm sorry about the volume. I just decided to fast forward everything in the sewing part. So, but keep watching for more videos. Subscribe. Make sure you hit that notification button. Leave comments. Share. I really want everybody to know about this method. It's fairly new. And until next time, thank you and have a great day. Goodbye.